hopefully all of you are getting to know each other at the table and having nice conversation. But now it's time for us to start our program. And my very dear friend and someone who I really look up to, Mayor Pro Tem Billy Orr, is going to have the honor of introducing our guest speaker.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I will tell you, this is absolutely one of my favorite events for the city of Prescott. You know, every quarter we all get together and just love to see you all. And just a shout out to this chamber. This is the best chamber, #1 in my book, I will tell you. And the wonderful work that we're doing with the chamber, with the city all together is just really special to have the Heinies with us. So my honor to introduce my great friend, and I love this lady. And when they asked me if I would do this, I'm so honored to do that because she's such a dear friend. I would not hesitate to call Karen Fann for anything, and I do it a lot. So as a small business owner, Karen launched Arizona Highway Safety Specialist, Inc. in 1984 with just $500 of her own money. Her drive and determination to succeed has turned today's AHSS into Arizona's largest installer of roadway guardrails and signage. AHSS has 30 to 40 employees and celebrated its 34th anniversary in 2017. Karen and her husband, Jim McCowan, have also owned and operated the Fann Ranch for nearly a decade. The ranch and equine facility boarded horses and produced equine competitions while working closely with area 4-H clubs and other nonprofits to organize and sponsor community fundraisers at the ranch. Karen, this is amazing to me. I admire her so much. Karen is past City of Prescott council member. She was also vice mayor, mayor pro tem, also mayor of Chino Valley for 3 terms, has been the 3 terms in the Arizona House of Representatives, and has just completed her first in the Senate, and is also running for Senate. And she has 35 legislative awards. And I believe this because everything I go to where it's at state level, Karen just gets all these awards because she does such great work down at the legislature. I will tell you, I say a million times, thank God we have Karen Fann at the legislature. She's amazing. So I texted Karen this morning. By the way, Karen taught me last night how to do a personal little emoji. You should see it. It's really cute. So I texted Karen. I said, so Karen, let me find my text. So tell me one thing that people don't know about you. We know so much about Karen Fann, but what about what we don't know about Karen Fann? And she said, I used to work for the airlines, and you'll have to tell us the name of the airlines. Airlines, in my first uniform was hot pants and go-go boots. Cotton candy pink and candy apple red were their colors. Traded my go-go boots for steel-toed boots and a hard hat when I started my business. Karen Fann, we love you, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Billy. Billy is always so kind, and the truth is she's really the amazing one, and she's the one I call to on a lot and say, what are we doing here? You know, I had to let my hair grow just a little bit because last year they keep getting the 2 of us mixed up. They were calling her Karen and me Billy all the time, so I said, we got to do something a little different here with our hair. So anyway, thank you all very, very much for coming today. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this great event. This is amazing. Women in business, in women that are so involved with our community is just tremendous. I mean, you guys are just amazing, and juggling your lives and your work and your families and your nonprofits and all the things you do. My hats off are to all of you. You guys are just amazing. So I thought I'd start this out with just a couple of questions. And the first question is what do you want to be when you grow up? And the second question was, what experiences in life make you a success or a better person? And the answer to those questions are, we never grow up, and the life experiences are never ending. True? So let's talk about, I want to go down a little nostalgia road here, just a little bit, if I may. So we moved here to Prescott when I was 4 years old. I had an older sister, Gail, that was a year older, and many of you might know Mike Fann. Anybody heard of Mike Fann before? He's 3 years younger than I am, so he was 1 year old when he came here. So Prescott is our home. We were raised here, and so we have a lot of roots and a lot of old family ties here. Back then, the population of Prescott was 5,000 people. Prescott Valley did not exist. It was called Jackass Flats. Chino Valley was a little tiny rural community, farming and ranching community out in the county with a population of 300 people. And a lot of people used to go out to Chino and get their fresh milk and eggs, and the corn was amazing back then, all the cornfields in Chino Valley. We don't see too many of them anymore. I attended public schools. Go Badgers, woo woo, Prescott Unified. One of the things that was very unique that is pretty amazing, one of the things that I miss the most, I didn't back then, but I do now, is that everybody knew each other and the parents all knew whose kids you were, right? So if you did something wrong at school, first you got it at school by the principal or the teacher, and when you got home, you got it again because your mom and dad already knew about it. Or if you tried to do anything, somebody's mom saw you, and by the time you got home, you got in trouble for that too. So consequently, my little sister Sarah will tell you about the day that she decided, she was like 15 and thought she ought to take the car and go for a little drive. Thought she'd get away with it, right? Because she didn't go too far. She was 15. And guess what? My mom and dad knew about it within 5 minutes because everybody saw it. So needless to say, she was grounded for the rest of her life. We had 2 theaters here. We had the Elks Theater. Yay, Elks. It was like 35 cents to go to the movies. I know, I'm dating myself. I'm sorry. And then we had the Senator Drive-In, which was way fun. We used to all go up to the Senator and pile in the cars and sit outside and watch the movies. It was really a good time. And there were actually 3 swimming holes, if you will. We had the YMCA, the original old one before the new one was built. The old Hacienda Country Club, which has been since converted and redesigned and everything else, but there was a swimming pool out there. And then, of course, the Dells. We used to swim at the Dells. Now, the bad thing about the Dells, wear an old bathing suit because when you got out, the suit was green. Swear to God, it was totally green. And we had ropes hanging from the trees, and we would swing out there and fall in and do all kinds of great things that obviously they won't let you do anymore. So as it was mentioned, I did work for the airlines for 10 years. I at one time got my real estate license so I could actually help some people go on trips. I was a legal assistant. I was a jury commissioner here in Prescott at the Superior Court, and I started my own business at 34. It's kind of interesting. When I started the business, it was, let's just see what happens. And one of the reasons why I started it, I knew I wanted to start my own business. I just thought I wanted to, like, do catering. I love to cook. And my mom said, no, you have to get into construction because there's this new thing called DBEs. Disadvantaged Business Enterprises, also as WBEs, Women Business Enterprises. And so the federal highways had put goals on a lot of these jobs now to encourage minorities and women to get involved in construction because, quite honestly, everybody was pretty well shut out back then. And my mom and dad said, okay, you guys, you need to get into construction. You know it. You were raised around it, and let's just try that. So that's what we did. I started Arizona Highways. My first job was a flagging job in Black Canyon City. That was lots of fun. Yeah, really. Got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We'd drive down to Black Canyon. I hired a bunch of people from down there. We flagged from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., drove back home at night every night, and did all of the payroll and the books and the bidding and everything else on the weekends. So that's how we did it. I tell you, one of the rules of thumb that I've always done for 34 years, because I've been asked to bid on a lot of stuff, and I'm sharing this because I'm hoping to share you as businesswomen that you will keep some of this in the back of your mind in the future, is I always said, what's the worst that can happen? And if it does, can I survive it? So if somebody said, hey, will you bid on this job? Will you do this, do that? The first thing I said is, okay, what's the worst, within reason, right? What's the worst thing that can happen? And if it happens, can I survive it? And if the answer was yes, then I did it. I said, you bet. I'll get the money, I'll do this, whatever it is, and I can do it. If it was so big that it would have just been devastating, like wiped out my company or done something like that, then you've got to say no. You've got to know when to say no, because the alternative is devastating, right? So always keep that in the back of your mind. One of the biggest surprises in my business, because I was always raised, as most of you here, I believe, is that we should be able to do anything we want to do, right? And one of the biggest surprises that I did not know, because quite honestly, I thought these minority and women goals were kind of stupid. I'm like, does people really think that way anymore? One of my first jobs, I ran out, was unloading some barricades, and the guy on the job said, what are you doing here? And I said, you ordered some barricades. And he goes, yeah, but you're a woman. And I said, glad you noticed. And he honestly said, what are you doing out here? This is a man's job. You're taking a job away from a man. And I'm going, seriously, people really think like that? I'm sorry to say, but yeah, they did. And quite honestly, some of them still do, right? So this is something that we have to keep getting involved with, and we need to keep getting, keep pushing that envelope. I'm not a bra-burning woman's liber, but by George, it's about time us women are treated like everybody else, right? So let's talk about getting into politics, because I want to talk to you about this a little bit. I never, ever thought I was going to get involved with politics. It was kind of, some of you know the story. I had mentioned something to one of my assistants and said, you know what, my business is kind of going now. I'll donate some of my time to planning and zoning or a board or a commissioner or something like that. And lo and behold, I went away on a ski trip a few months later, fell and broke my pelvic bone in 5 places. In the meantime, somebody that just got elected to the Prescott Council married the city attorney and quit the day after New Year's Day. And my assistants and my employees said, oh, Karen said she wanted to volunteer for something. They filled out the resume and sent it in, and when I got out of the hospital and I had a whole stack of contracts and everything, they said, by the way, you have an interview for Prescott Council in 3 weeks. And that's how my political career started. Seriously, I had no intention. I'm getting somewhere with this because I'm trying to plant a seed in each one of your minds right now. So consequently, that's how I got started in the Prescott Council. My business was growing. Some years later, I built a new building, moved to Chino Valley, and once again, as Cecilia will tell you, there was an opening on the Chino Council, and they came to me and said, Karen, would you let us appoint you to fill this position in? And I said, no. I've got enough. And they said, oh, come on, do it. And I said, all right, I'll do it for, 7, 8 months, whatever it was supposed to be. And after about a month, they said, oh, by the way, we decided you're going to be the next mayor. So I ended up working with some amazing people as well, so it's pretty cool. So at that point, then thought we were done after I did 3 terms there. And then I've somehow talked into going down to the state and serving at the state level. Now, I wasn't too sure whether I wanted to do that, because the higher you get in politics, and by the way, I'm not going anywhere else, folks, just this is it, okay? It does get a little crazier, but the one thing that really was why I entertained the idea that was intriguing to me is because when we worked with the city of Prescott, town of Chino Valley, Prescott Valley, there were so many things. On a local level, we do planning and zoning, we do this, we do that, but then we get into the big issues like education and water issues and so many, infrastructure and all those kind of things. Well, guess those are state level. Those are things, so no matter what we tried to do from our municipalities to try and help protect our water and make sure that we had enough for the future, or the roads or everything else, we couldn't do any of that stuff because that was a state level. So I was really, at that point I said, yeah, I really want to be able to do things like that. It's interesting down there. It's a different level down there at the state, right? Politics are definitely will get in your way. Unlike usually on local government, it's not. It's supposed to be nonpartisan. And so therefore we try and keep those politics out of that. When you get to a state level, it gets a little more political. I am like really, really, really blessed because I work with a lot of amazing people down there. And some of my very best friends down there are Democrats. And I work very, very closely with both sides of that. And because I keep telling them, you know, the reality is, folks, is that 85% of everything we do in this state should be nonpartisan, right? Schools, roads, water, everything, right? Thanks. So consequently, since day one down there, I have been able to garner really good working relationships with everybody because I just keep saying that mantra, keep the politics out of it. You know, there might be 15 or 20% that we will never agree on because they're more of the social issues. And I say, you know what, that's okay. Let's respect each other's opinions and we'll agree not to agree. Or what, you know what? Maybe one of these days we will actually sit down and talk and teach each other something about our different viewpoints. Wouldn't that be great too? So that's one of the reasons why I really, really love this job is because I love being able to move that stuff forward. Is everybody here know how a bill gets made? Show of hands. And be serious. Okay, good. Because I will tell you how many people, you know, I go to schools all the time and I talk to the kids and we talk about how legislation is made and this and that and the other. And when I'm leaving, the teachers always come up to me and they say, I think we learned more than the kids did. So just so you know, legislation, and I'm going to give you a little history here because I want to make sure that you guys can absolutely understand about how we do this. So if we are going to pass a bill, let's say, give me a great idea for a bill. Come on. The kids usually say we want ice cream stores on every corner is what they tell me. Liquor infused, there we go. We call those gelatos, right? So liquor infused ice cream. So she's going to come to me and she's going to say, Karen, I would like to have a law put into place that we're going to have liquor infused ice cream on every corner. And I said, great. Okay. So we drop the bill. I give it to Leg Counsel, which is the legal beagles, and they will draw up the legislative language. They kind of check to see what statutes are there, which statute it should go under. And then we put it, what we call drop it in the hopper. And I can get other people to sign on and say, hey, this is a really good bill. Do you want to co-sponsor it with me? We drop it in the hopper. Do you know why we call it the hopper? It's because there's this big frog there, and when you drop it, the thing goes ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Seriously. And that's because you thought I was kidding, right? No, seriously. And that lets the clerks, they know that we just dropped something in the hopper. And so that's the term, dropping it in the hopper. That's where it came from. So then once they all get, they go to the president of the Senate or the Speaker of the House, and those two are allowed to decide where that bill will go, which committee it will be assigned to, and they will decide whether maybe they don't even want it to go to a committee. They could kill it right there and say, this is a dumb bill, it's not going anywhere. So you've got to get over that hurdle. Then it gets assigned to a committee. Once you get to the committee, then the committee chair gets to decide whether he or she even wants to hear it. And if they do, it gets a committee hearing. If it gets out of committee, then it now goes to what we call caucus, which is where the Republicans and the Democrats will discuss bills amongst their own members. And then we go to the floor, and we have what we call COW, Committee of the Whole, and this is where we debate it on the floor. And then we have third read. And anytime during that process, we can put amendments on it, to maybe help the bill get along better, or maybe we're negotiating some deals on it. So let's say that it gets out of whatever house you're in. Let's say we're over in the House of Representatives, and we get out of there. It has to pass with a simple majority. So over in the House, there are how many members? 60. 60 members in the House, 30 members in the Senate. And the reason for that is we have 30 districts in Arizona, and every district has 2 House members and 1 Senate member. So that's why we have 60 in the House, 30 in the Senate. So it gets out of the House, it goes over to the Senate, it starts all over again. The president decides if he wants to assign it. If he does, he signs it to a committee. It goes through the whole thing. And once it goes through the whole process again over in the Senate, and let's say it gets out of the Senate, then it gets transmitted up to the governor, and the governor has the final say. He is the 91st vote, and if he likes it, he'll sign it. If he doesn't, he'll veto it right there. So all those hours and everything could go down the tubes. So consequently, legislation is very tedious. It's very a lot of negotiating, a lot of trying to meet, especially if you do. I do a lot of really tough bills. So I am like the stakeholder queen because we are constantly meeting. Because I do a lot of bills that entail things like workman's comp reform and unemployment reform and. Anybody hear about the no texting for teenage drivers? Yes, yes, yes. Took me 6 years to get that bill done, right? That was a really tough one, folks, because I even had the votes this last time. I mean, look you in the eye. Yes, Karen, you have my vote, and they threw it up on the floor on the board over in the House. And it was like 1 o'clock, and we were already done in the Senate, and everybody was leaving. And I saw that it was going up, and I said, I'm sticking around. I'm not heading back to Prescott. And I went over, and then I was in the lounge watching the numbers, and I'm looking at them flipping their votes, you know, the greens and the reds. And I'm looking at, I know who told me, looked me in the eye and said, Karen, you have my vote, and they were flipping their votes. Well, luckily, we have floor privileges. I walked out on that floor, and I went right to their face, and I said, you know what? You told me that I had your vote. You told me you were smart. Well, the Liberty Caucus decided that, you know, it's too much government. It's the, don't say it. You know, and I'm a conservative, but, you know, come on, let's be smart about things we do in our lives here. And so I said, wait a minute. I said, so who do you answer to? You gave me your word. So is that okay with you to break your word because somebody else is telling you whatever? And they actually looked at me and they said, you're right. I gave you my word, and they flipped their votes back. So we got it out of there, 31. I had one vote to spare. So it's kind of deal. So yeah, that was so legislation is intricate. We also did another bill this year that had to do. One of my bills was curbing the opioid abuse. We've got a real problem going on, as you guys know, and it's statewide. And I'm not talking about just drug users, things like that. I'm talking about the opioid use that is prescription drugs. There's a workman's comp injury, and our employees are getting overprescribed, and they're getting hooked on opioids. And then, of course, the governor had his bill, which addressed the opioids statewide. So we're trying to do some good things with there. A couple of other things, just so you know. Education, we were able to get money back into the schools this year. We're still working on it, but $650 million new dollars over the next 3 years are going in. Our teachers are finally going to get some pay that they deserve. And there's still a lot of things that we need to do, but that was like really, really exciting and important. The other thing that was really cool is it was to see so many of our teachers that came down to the Capitol. It was really good, and it's amazing how many of them all said, wow, this is really interesting. We've never had the chance to actually see how the sausage is made down here. True story. So it was really good for them. They said, we feel like we were in school down here, so we learned. So we were able to get that. Mayor School District, in case you guys didn't know, we lost $300,000 out there in Mayor because of the flooding, so we were able to get that money back for them. Prescott, we were able to get $1 million for Prescott PSPRS, and we'll keep working on that one. That's a whole lot of good. So the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because I see a lot of very intelligent, wonderful, smart women in this room. And I know your plates are already full, but you will absolutely love it if you ever get involved with, and when I say politics, I don't, you can run for an office, but what about boards and commissions, parks and recs? What about school boards? You know what? We need more good people to run for our school boards. That's important. We need people to run more for things like planning and zoning or board and adjustments or all those kind of things. So the purpose of my conversation and my talk today is I want to build a fire under you. I want to create a passion for you in your gut that says, I want to get involved. I want to have my voice heard. I want to be able to help everybody out there and make some important decisions for our communities, because this is our hometown. This is our kids, and what happens here is what affects all of us. And you guys are amazing, amazing, amazing people, and you should be a part of those decisions. Thank you.
We have just a few more minutes. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, okay. I can holler. Okay. I was a cheerleader. Fine.
I've always wondered whether, to what degree riders hinder or help your bills.
Riders as in amendments? They can be both. Sometimes they will put amendments on there that will literally kill the bill, but we also have a thing what we call hostile amendments. And there's kind of an unspoken rule down there is that if we all of a sudden say this is a hostile amendment, 99% of the time they will not allow that to go on because it's just disrespectful.
Well, what I don't understand is why sometimes the rider has absolutely nothing to do with the bill.
Well, and that's true on a federal level, but not on a state level. On a state level, we do have things in our Constitution that says that they have to be germane. So, yes.
Give us some context, if you would, Karen. How many bills are submitted to that
The quacker frog. Jointly between the state and the House, there's roughly 1,200 bills that are submitted every year. And there's actually about 350 or so, plus or minus, that actually get passed into law. So, and it's, it's a lot of hard work. I have had probably, start out with about 25 bills every year. And then we kind of wheedle around because some of them I can join with other ones and things like that. So I think personally I've had somewhere between 75 and 100 of my bills that have been signed into law. So pretty good. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
On an average, how long is the process then from when it begins to when it ends?
How long is the process? Well, we are in session every year from January till like the beginning of May. So we go in the second week of January. The statutes actually say 100 business days, calendar days. But if we don't get the budget done, then consequently it will bleed over into May most of the time. So if it's a pretty simple bill and you get it dropped in right away and this and that and the other, you can get it through the process in about 6 weeks. But if it is an intricate bill or if there's any opposition at all, it will literally take the entire session, just working and working and working it to make sure that you get it down so that at least you get enough compromise in the stakeholders. Sometimes they take years, like 6 years. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
How do lobbyists play a role in this
Oh, that's a good question. Thank you for asking that question because, we hear so much rhetoric on TV and the news and everything about those awful, nasty lobbyists, right? They're terrible. Well, I can't speak for what goes on the federal level because things at federal are totally different than state. But I will tell you what a lot of people don't understand is every single one of you in this room is a lobbyist. You may not be a registered lobbyist. You may not get paid to lobby. But every single one of you that ever writes an email, makes a phone call, stops us on the street, and talks to Billy or me or Cecilia, anybody else, that you want to see something, you are lobbying. So remember, lobbyists are good because lobbyists can be you and you and you and you. The thing that's unique here in Arizona is that we don't have, contrary to belief, guys, I have one assistant, and that assistant basically takes care of all of my schedules. We don't have a staff like they have up in Congress that does our research. We don't spend a lot of money on things like that in Arizona. So the lobbyists are actually the ones that end up having to explain to us or tell us what a lot of these bills are about that they're running. And if in a good, smart elected official, they will use those lobbyists. So if I have somebody that comes in and says, Karen, I really would like you to support this bill, X, Y, and D. Here's what it does, do, everything else. I said, okay, great. And I ask my questions, and then I say, who doesn't like this bill? And if they're honest, and they better be, because they know if they lie to me once, they'll never be back in my office again, right? Cecilia knows that. That's true. There is a lobbyist down there that actually lied to me the first year I was down there, and he's never been allowed back in my office since then. Quite honestly, if you're going to lie to me, then I don't have time for you. That's all there is to it, right? We've got important things to do. Anyway, the bottom line is that I will say, who doesn't like us, and they come back and they go, well, these groups aren't going to like it, and here's why. And I said, all right, thank you. Thanks for being honest. Well, then consequently, one of the lobbyists from the other groups will come in and say, you got to kill this bill. It's due to do this and that and the other. And I say, okay, great, I get that. And I'm kind of matching that with what the other lobbyists told me. And then I will ask them the same thing. Oh, well, who likes this bill? Who's in favor of it? And why is that? And if you get that information, you can actually figure out what really is going on. And you know what? There's one other saying, follow the money. Okay, that's it. Anybody else? Thank you.